Now, yesterday, I reported that it was chaos again in the English Channel, with large numbers of migrant boats coming over, the RNLI effectively doing the job of border force, beach landings, and all the rest of it. There's no official figure yet from Border Force as to how many arrived yesterday, but the Telegraph have a report that 1,135 reached the UK on Tuesday. We've also been told that 5 Channel migrants have been returned to Europe thus far this year, which is a lot more than none. But as winter, well, we're sort of almost in it, as winter approaches, let's have a look at the boats that are now being used to cross the Channel, because this is very, very significant. Right, have a look at that. That is your 11-metre, 36-foot boat. These are the boats that started being used this year, and the record on one of those was 83 people. But normally, and here's one of them with the number 912, that's 912 boats into Dover Harbour so far this year. But here's the point. Look at the sides. They're not the normal flat boats. These are built up. They've got upturned bows. These boats can deal with much heavier seas than, say, the boat on the left. See the difference? It's absolutely enormous. Upturned bow, big protective barriers on either side. And I would hazard that even in moderate sea conditions, as opposed to calm, those dinghies can make it across the English Channel. And what it means is nothing is going to stop. It doesn't matter that the colder months are coming. They're going to keep coming in their thousands unless something is done. Now, I'm joined now by immigration lawyer and friend of the programme, Ivan Sampson. Ivan, good evening to you.
Hi, good evening, Nigel.
Are you like many of us shocked by the sheer numbers that are now coming across the English Channel?
I am. And what really shocks me is this. There is no strategy. There's no system in place to deal with these people. And more worrying than that is that we don't know the background of who these people are.
Yep.
Look, the 1951 convention was written at a different era. It was a time when we didn't have the Taliban, we didn't have ISIS. We didn't really have a threat from the Middle East as we do today. And I've really looked at this objectively and really reconsidered my position on this, because I do think that we need to relook at that convention, perhaps even come out of the convention and have our own set of laws, our own acts to deal with this. We need to know who these people are, where they come from. The Liverpool bomber, the taxi bomber, made me think that if he'd been assessed prior to coming to the UK, would we have allowed him entry? I'm not sure about that.
Ivan, your position here has changed quite significantly, hasn't it?
Well, look, we have a responsibility to accept genuine migrants. That's never changed. And I, again, reiterate that we need to accept about 100,000 a year. Look, I don't think any of your listeners would object to genuine migrants fleeing persecution who have a right to live in the UK.
Ivan, can I just interject for a moment? I think what vast majority of our viewers would not be concerned about is genuine refugees, people who are fleeing in fear of their lives. But the concern is that over 20,000 undocumented young males have come into the country so far, and that the pace of that is actually speeding up, not slowing down.
We've got no control over it. You might as well put a footbridge over the English Channel and allow people just to walk across. Look, it cannot go on. The Home Secretary has to get a grip of the situation. And I've said time and time again, she needs to enter into bilateral talks with the French. Diplomacy has to win. There's no reason why we can't assess these applications on the other side of the Channel. The Refugee Convention only allows these people to claim asylum in the country where they enter. So that's the reason they need to come here, because they can't claim asylum on the other side. So if we had an agreement with the French for us to consider these claims in France, we could then also check the background of these people. Look, I've got children, and I worry about the future for them, because if I was the Taliban or ISIS, I'd be sending people across the channel and getting them asylum. And we've no idea how many people have come in who are sleeper agents for these people.
If we turn the clock back to 2015, to the mass migration that took place across the Mediterranean, ISIS actually boasted back in 2015 that they would use it to get their operatives into the continent of Europe. Ivan, can we deal with this, given we're still part of the European Convention on Human Rights? Or do we, I mean, you've said already that the 1951 definition of what is a refugee needs revisiting, and I agree with you. You know, it's 70 years old. But can we deal with this? All the while, the Strasbourg court has a say over these things.
They do, but their decisions are not binding on us. I mean, we consider their decisions, but it's not binding. Look, we need to have our own set of laws on asylum. The 51 Convention is not fit for purpose, for the reasons I've already set out to you before. And I think the Home Secretary needs to get into a bilateral agreement with the French to come to an arrangement whereby we can consider these applications on the other side of the channel. There's no reason why a refugee has to physically be in the country to claim asylum. And if that was the case, once you pick them up in the channel, you take them back across, and that's where you consider their application. I mean, it's going to be hard talk with the French. But again, also, I think we need to proliferate asylums globally. The West has to take their fair share of genuine refugees. I'm all for genuine refugees. I'm not for people. Look, the Refugee Convention was not meant to be used by people coming from poor countries. That's not what it's meant for. It's meant for protection.
Yeah.
And I think that's happening a lot in the world, where people see the UK as a place of to improve their financial situation, and I don't blame them. But that's not what the purpose of the Refugee Convention is. There are other ways they can come through the immigration system.
Ivan, really interesting. Thank you once again for joining us. And that was interesting because in the past I've argued with Ivan Sampson. We've taken very different points of view on what's been happening in the English Channel. And now there is actually quite a broad head of agreement between the two of us. It is unacceptable and too big a risk, security risk, for this country to accept vast numbers of undocumented young males who come from the Middle East and all over the rest of the world.